in relation with the whole microfilm and stuff like that, what sort of methods of conservation do you use here in the record office, and like how often do the people that dedicate to restoration and conservation check documents and deal with them?
Starting off with the last bit, because we have so many documents here, we have 8 miles of shelving, there's no way that we can keep on going back over documents, checking whether they've deteriorated. So it's normally when documents are asked for by members of the public that we spot that they might need some repair work, and then we will let our conservation staff know about that. And we have gone through a long process of looking at some of our older collections, which perhaps weren't packaged in archive quality acid-free material when they came in, and seeing what repair work or repackaging work needs to be done with those. And we hope at some point we might be able to do a more detailed survey of the repair work that's required, but one can't keep on going round and round again with that. But the work that our conservation section does, we have 2 qualified conservators, and that's a very different training from the training to be an archivist. The conservators are trained in what's very much a craft and a science conservation work, and we have 1 conservation assistant as well. And the work that they do involves ensuring that the documents survive for future generations, but that might be done in all sorts of ways. One way is by making microfilm or microfiche copies of commonly used documents so that they don't deteriorate by being constantly handled. One is by repackaging them. So, for instance, if documents have been tightly folded, it might be advisable to flatten them very carefully and then package them in acid-free folders, so that when the pages are turned over, they don't have to be constantly opened and closed along their old fold lines, and that will help preserve them for the future. Things like photographs need special treatment because they will be preserved much better if they are kept in acetate sleeves. That's a form of clear plastic which, unlike most modern plastics that you find in stationers, won't react at all with the image. But then there are some things which really have been so badly damaged that the only way in which we can make them available to the public again is to repair them using a proper archive quality repair. And we have to be careful when repairing documents to use, as far as possible, materials which are the same as the originals. So if you're repairing a parchment document, you use parchment. If it's a paper document, you use the same type of paper. So for a document made before about 1800, you'll want to use rag pulp paper where the fibres are long fibres laid in 2 directions, as opposed to the modern short one-direction fibres of most modern wood pulp paper. And so that way you avoid having any acids from modern paper migrating into the very documents that you're trying to save. And of course you have to bear in mind how robust the document is, whether the inks are water soluble or not. Because a document that's on paper that is robust in itself, but perhaps has had acid migrate into it from an old envelope it's been kept in, and you can bring the pH back up again by soaking it in a bath of lime water. But of course you'll want to be really careful to make sure that the paper is strong enough for that, and that the inks are all water fast, and that there's no risk of the writing floating away. So that's only done with great care. If you have a document with a large wax seal that may well have been broken, and that can be repaired once again using sympathetic materials, wax. But you won't want to conceal the fact that a document's been repaired. We aren't wanting to make things look as good as the day they were made, so we won't write in words we think are missing or try and carve bits of a decorated seal that should have been there, but we'll just try to make it strong enough to be used again, but make it clear for the public that there is a repair, and so that the words that they see are only the words that were on the remains of the original document.
Sounds like a very complicated and time-consuming process.
It is indeed, yes, yes.
Well, now we're going to move to the more relaxed, I guess, questions, and they're more fun and more personally directed to you rather than the whole issue. Do you want to start with the first one?
Do you have a favourite record in the archives?
Oh, well, there could be so many, but I suppose one of my favourite ones, because it's poignant and because it's a very personal item and because it demonstrates the fragility of archives and how easily they can be lost if at one moment somebody doesn't realise the interest in them. We had a lady a few years ago brought in some letters that she found in her aunt's coal scuttle. And these letters had all been torn up, ready to use as kindling. They were letters written by members of the family in the 1850s, many of them. And one of them was a letter written to a member of the family who was serving in the Crimean War. His name was Andrew Mears. And his brother Thomas, who was aged about 7, I think, writes part of this letter, and he writes it in the big loopy handwriting that children tend to use. And like so many children's letters, it doesn't really do anything other than get going and then winding down again. It never really has any great substance to it. It's not going to be of great political importance or anything like that. But he ends up something along the lines of, "It is time for me to go to bed now. When I am older, I shall be able to write a longer letter to you." But he never had the chance because his brother was killed in the Crimean War a few weeks later, so he probably never got to write him another letter. So it's very poignant, and the fact that this letter has had to be pieced together again from the bits found in the coal scuttle is just a reminder of how easily something which had been preserved for over 100 years, somebody might think it wasn't worth keeping. But fortunately, in this case, there was the happy outcome that at least about 7/8 of the letter survived and is now safe with us.